Sometimes a single message can change the direction of a life. On a quiet Tuesday evening, Clara sat alone in the living room of the house she had shared with her husband for 7 years. The lights were dim and the television was on, but she wasn't really watching it. The soft sound of a news program filled the room, yet her mind was somewhere else entirely. The house felt strangely empty. It hadn't always been like this. When Clara and Daniel first got married, the house had felt full of warmth and laughter. They used to cook dinner together, talk late into the night, and plan little weekend trips just to escape their busy lives. But over time, things had slowly changed. There were no dramatic arguments, no broken plates or slammed doors. Instead, their marriage had faded into something quiet and distant. Daniel worked longer hours than before, often coming home late and exhausted. Clara had her own routine to work during the day, small errands. Quiet evenings, they still spoke to each other politely, but the spark that once made their relationship feel alive had slowly disappeared. That evening, Clara had been scrolling through her phone absent-mindedly when a notification suddenly appeared. A message. She glanced down casually, expecting it to be from a friend or maybe a work email. But when she saw the name, her fingers froze. Ryan. Her ex-boyfriend. Clara hadn't spoken to him in years. The last time they had talked was long before she met Daniel. Back then, she had been younger, more carefree, and much less certain about what she wanted from life. Ryan had been a big part of that chapter. He was adventurous, spontaneous, and full of energy. The kind of man who believed life should always be exciting. With Ryan, there was always something happening. Road trips, concerts, last-minute plans that kept life unpredictable. For a moment, Clara simply stared at the screen. She felt a strange mixture of curiosity and nervousness. Finally, she opened the message. "Hey Clara, I know it's been a long time. I was thinking about you today when I booked a short vacation by the coast next week. Remember how much you loved the ocean? It made me wonder how you've been." Clara blinked slowly. The message felt harmless, almost friendly, but something about it stirred old memories she hadn't thought about in years. She leaned back against the couch and looked around the quiet room. The clock on the wall ticked steadily. Outside, the evening sky was darkening. For the past few years, Clara's life had been stable and predictable. She had a comfortable home, a reliable husband, and a routine that rarely changed. But sometimes that routine felt heavy. Sometimes she wondered when her life had become so quiet. Her phone buzzed again. Ryan had sent another message. "I'm actually going there for 4 days. Just a small break from work. If you're free, you should come. It would be fun to catch up." Clara felt her heart beat a little faster. The idea seemed ridiculous. She was married, and yet the invitation sparked something inside her that she hadn't felt in a long time. Excitement. She stood up and walked slowly toward the kitchen, her phone still in her hand. The soft light above the counter flickered on as she entered. Clara poured herself a glass of water. Trying to clear her thoughts, she told herself it was just a message, just an old friend reaching out, but deep down, she knew it wasn't that simple. Ryan had always had a way of making life feel exciting. And right now, excitement was exactly what her life seemed to be missing. Clara opened the chat again and began typing. "How have you been, Ryan? It's been a long time." But the reply came quickly. "Better now that you answered. I thought you might ignore me." She smiled faintly. They exchanged a few short messages, talking about work, old memories, and how life had changed over the years. The conversation flowed easily, almost like no time had passed at all. Ryan was still the same person she remembered, confident, playful, and a little bold. After a few minutes, he repeated his invitation. "You should really come on that trip. Just for days. Sun, ocean, good food. No stress." Clara stared at the message. She knew what most people would say. A married woman going on vacation with her ex-boyfriend was not exactly a wise decision. But at that moment, she felt something unexpected rising inside her, a quiet frustration. Over the past few years, Clara had often felt like her life was standing still while everyone else was moving forward. Daniel was always busy with work, rarely noticing the little things that once mattered to them. Sometimes she wondered if he even realized how distant they had become. Part of her wanted to test something. Part of her wanted to see if Daniel would react. She walked back into the living room and sat down again, holding her phone tightly. If she told Daniel about the invitation, what would he do? Would he finally show emotion? Would he argue with her? Would he tell her not to go? Clara suddenly realized she wanted a reaction. Any reaction. Something that would prove their relationship still had passion somewhere inside it. Slowly, she opened her messages and selected Daniel's name. He was still at work, probably sitting in his office, focused on another long evening of emails and paperwork. Clara hesitated for a moment. Then she began typing. Hey, Ryan invited me on a short vacation next week. I think I'm going to go. Don't be jealous. It's just a trip. She read the message again. It sounded bold, maybe even a little careless. But before she could rethink it, she pressed send. The message was gone. For a moment, Clara felt a strange thrill. Now she just had to wait. She placed her phone on the table and crossed her arms, staring at the screen. Surely Daniel would reply quickly. He might call her immediately. He might ask questions. He might even get angry. But minutes passed, and nothing happened. The television continued playing quietly in the background. The clock kept ticking. 10 minutes later, her phone buzzed. Clara grabbed it quickly. Daniel had replied. She opened the message. If that's what you feel you need, then go. I hope you find what you're looking for. That was all. No anger, no accusations, no questions. Just calm words. Clara frowned slightly. This wasn't the reaction she had expected. She had imagined Daniel being upset, maybe even jealous. But his response felt strangely distant, almost peaceful. She read the message again. I hope you find what you're looking for. What did that mean? Was he being sarcastic? Was he hurt? Or had he simply stopped caring? Clara suddenly felt a small wave of uncertainty. Her plan to provoke a reaction had not worked the way she imagined. Instead of creating drama, Daniel had responded with quiet acceptance. She leaned back on the couch, thinking maybe he was just busy. Maybe he would call later. But as the evening continued, the phone stayed silent. Across town, in a small office filled with soft light from computer screens, Daniel sat alone at his desk. He had read Clara's message twice. At first, he thought he might have misunderstood it, but the words were clear. She was going on vacation with her ex. For a moment, Daniel felt a sharp pain in his chest, not anger, something deeper, sadness. For years, he had believed that even though their marriage had grown quiet, the foundation between them was still strong. But Clara's message made him realize something important. Maybe she had been unhappy for a long time. Daniel leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. He thought about their early years together, how excited they used to be about the future, how they once promised to always talk openly with each other. Somewhere along the way, those promises had been replaced by silence. Daniel picked up his phone again. He could call her. He could argue. He could demand that she cancel the trip. But a strange calmness settled over him. If Clara truly wanted to go, forcing her to stay wouldn't fix anything. People who feel trapped only grow more distant. So instead, he sent the message that Clara had already read. I hope you find what you're looking for. After sending it, Daniel placed his phone down slowly. He wasn't sure what would happen next, but deep inside, he felt that something important had just changed. Not with anger, not with shouting, but with a quiet decision that neither of them fully understood yet. And miles away, sitting in the dim light of their living room, Clara had no idea that her simple message had already begun to reshape the future of their marriage. A few days later, Clara found herself stepping off the train into a small coastal town, the salty breeze brushing against her face. The town was nothing like the bustling city she had left behind. Narrow streets curved along the shore, lined with cafes, colorful shops, and small inns. Seagulls called overhead, and the rhythmic crash of waves against the rocks filled the air. Clara clutched her bag tighter, a strange mix of excitement and unease swirling inside her. She had never taken a trip like this, especially not with Ryan. Ryan was already there, waiting near the station with his usual grin. He waved enthusiastically, and for a moment Clara felt a flicker of her old excitement. He looked exactly the same as she remembered, confident, energetic, and full of life. His clothes were casual, a loose shirt over sun-bleached shorts, and he carried a small backpack. He seemed carefree, completely at ease with the idea of a sudden vacation, which made Clara feel slightly out of place. Asterisk Clara, he called, his voice carrying over the hum of the crowd. You made it. She smiled, though it felt forced. Of course, she said, trying to sound casual. Inside, her heart was racing. This was the first time she had been near Ryan in years, and suddenly memories came rushing back. She remembered how he used to make her laugh, how he would plan surprises on a whim, how life with him had always been unpredictable. And now, after so many quiet years with Daniel, that unpredictability felt dangerous. They walked together toward the inn Ryan had booked. The streets were alive with small groups of tourists, street performers, and the smell of fresh bread and roasted coffee. Clara tried to take it all in, but she couldn't shake a quiet feeling of guilt that crept in with every step. She had been married to Daniel for years. She loved him more, at least she thought she did, but here she was, stepping into a world that belonged to her past. Ryan chatted as they walked, filling the silence with stories of his recent trips, the work he had done, and funny incidents from his life. Clara listened politely, laughing occasionally, though her mind was half elsewhere. She found herself comparing his world to her life with Daniel. Ryan's life was spontaneous and free, filled with adventures and risks. Daniel's life was quiet, stable, full of routines and small gestures of care. Both felt real, but in completely different ways. They arrived at the inn, a quaint building painted in soft pastel colors with a balcony overlooking the ocean. Ryan had reserved a small room with 2 beds. Clara hesitated when she saw the layout. It was meant for comfort, not romance, but the thought of sharing a space with her ex made her stomach twist. She set her bag down and tried to steady her breathing. Let's go check out the beach, Ryan suggested. He grabbed a small towel and pointed toward the sand. Clara nodded, following him. The beach was stunning, soft sand stretching for miles, waves rolling lazily, and the sun dipping low in the sky. The golden light shimmered across the water, and Clara felt a pang of longing for something she couldn't name. They walked along the shore, their feet sinking into the wet sand. Ryan was full of energy, picking up shells, pointing out birds, and making her laugh with his silly observations. For a moment, Clara allowed herself to be carried away by the nostalgia, the feeling that life could still hold excitement. But every time she glanced at the horizon, her mind returned to Daniel. Clara remembered the quiet moments at home, the evenings when Daniel would make her tea just the way she liked it, or the small notes he would leave on her desk. Those gestures had seemed insignificant at first, but now, in contrast to Ryan's bold, flashy personality, they felt profound. Daniel's love had been steady, predictable, but somehow enduring. The evening passed in a blur of light conversation and laughter. They ate at a small cafe near the beach, sharing seafood, pasta, and sipping cold lemonade. Ryan leaned back in his chair, smiling, occasionally touching her hand lightly while pointing out something interesting on the street. Clara felt a tension she hadn't expected. She realized that the excitement she had imagined wasn't entirely pleasure. It carried a sting of discomfort, a sense that she didn't belong completely in this moment. After dinner, they walked back along the beach under the stars. The sky was clear, the moon reflecting on the waves, and the soft sound of water created a quiet backdrop to their conversation. Ryan spoke about how he had always imagined them together, about how life could have been different, about adventures they might have shared. Clara's heart ached in ways she hadn't anticipated. These words stirred feelings she thought were long buried. For a moment, she almost told him she regretted coming. But she didn't. Instead, she smiled and nodded, allowing him to believe she was enjoying the trip. Inside, however, she felt a strange emptiness. Ryan was exciting, thrilling, and alive in a way Daniel never tried to be. But he wasn't home. He wasn't stability, he wasn't comfort, and he didn't know the quiet language of love that Daniel had mastered over years. The next morning they rented bicycles and rode along the coast, the wind in their hair and the sun warming their backs. Ryan was playful, racing ahead and turning back to cheer her on. Clara laughed freely, but her laughter carried a hollow echo. Every time Ryan leaned in to whisper a joke, she caught herself thinking of Daniel. She thought of his smile, the way he used to tell her about his day, even when he was exhausted. The way he had quietly managed their home without seeking recognition. Those memories tugged at her heart. They spent the afternoon exploring little shops and markets. Ryan bought her trinkets, small souvenirs that reminded her of their past adventures. Clara thanked him politely, but each gift felt bittersweet. She realized that while Ryan reminded her of excitement, he didn't ground her. He didn't make her feel like she belonged somewhere long-term. One evening, as the sun began to set, they sat on the beach again, watching the waves roll in. Ryan leaned closer and said softly, "You always belonged in a life like this. Free, unbound, always chasing something new." Clara's chest tightened. The words were meant to charm her, to rekindle feelings she had buried, but they only made her heart ache. She realized that excitement alone wasn't enough. Adventure was fleeting. What mattered was something quieter, something deeper, something she had with Daniel. For the first time during the trip, Clara felt the weight of her choice. She pulled out her phone and glanced at their chat. Daniel's last message, the one she had read days ago, lingered in her mind. "I hope you find what you're looking for." At the time, it had felt calm, distant, almost passive. But now she wondered what it truly meant. Was he hurt? Was he giving her freedom? Or was he letting go? Her curiosity pulled her toward social media. She opened Daniel's profile and froze. There was a new photo. He was sitting at a small cafe, smiling quietly. A woman she didn't recognize beside him. The caption read, "Sometimes life reminds you that peace matters more than anything." Clara's heart skipped. A surge of emotions flooded her: confusion, jealousy, guilt, and even admiration. Daniel had moved forward in a way she hadn't expected. He wasn't angry. He wasn't trying to make her feel guilty. He was quietly building his own happiness, accepting what had happened with calmness that she could neither understand nor match. That night, Clara lay in the small inn room, staring at the ceiling. The waves crashed softly outside the window. Ryan was asleep, sprawled comfortably on the other bed, dreaming without worry. Clara felt a hollow ache in her chest. She had expected excitement, thrill, maybe even a spark of old passion with Ryan. Instead, she felt a deep longing, a homesickness she hadn't anticipated. The next morning she walked alone along the beach, leaving Ryan behind for a while. She felt the sand beneath her feet, cold and wet from the early tide. The ocean stretched endlessly in front of her, reflecting the morning sun. Clara realized that the trip had shown her something important. The thrill of the past was not enough. Memories could excite, but they could not sustain. What she truly missed was the quiet constancy of love. The subtle gestures, the feeling of belonging that Daniel had quietly given her all along. When she returned to the inn, Ryan was waiting with a cheerful grin, oblivious to her sudden introspection. He started talking about their plans for the day, but Clara found herself only half listening. She felt distant, disconnected. The conversation that once would have brought her joy now felt shallow, lacking the depth she craved. As they rode bicycles along the coast that day, Clara's mind wandered. She thought about Daniel, about the life they had built together, about the love that had matured quietly over the years. Ryan's presence was a reminder of what she had once had, but also of what she had lost. And now she understood that what she truly needed wasn't excitement, was the quiet reassurance of being known, understood, and loved deeply, without drama or pretense. By the time the sun began to set on their last day, Clara felt a growing clarity. She hadn't realized it during the trip, but each smile, each joke, each adventure with Ryan only reminded her of what she truly valued. Adventure was fleeting, thrill was temporary, but the love Daniel had offered her, the kind that endured silently, without seeking attention, was rare and irreplaceable. On the final night, they walked along the shore under a sky dotted with stars. Ryan spoke of future plans, of dreams and possibilities, but Clara's mind was elsewhere. She realized she had been chasing a memory, a spark from the past, without acknowledging the life waiting for her back home. She felt a pang of guilt, a mixture of regret and awakening. She had sought excitement, but what she found was loneliness. She had expected thrills, but all she felt was longing for a connection that Ryan could not provide. The trip had been beautiful, yes, but it had also made her heart ache for what truly mattered. As she lay in bed that night, listening to the waves, Clara understood something profound. Sometimes people search for something they think is missing, only to realize that it was never the excitement they needed. It was love, patience, understanding, and quiet loyalty that mattered most. And all that time, Daniel had been giving her exactly that, even when she hadn't noticed. By the time morning came, Clara knew her trip with Ryan had reached its natural end. It had been an adventure, a journey into the past, a reminder of old feelings. But it had also been a mirror, reflecting what she truly valued in her life. She packed her bags with a sense of purpose, a quiet determination to return to what was real, to what had endured despite years of silence and distance. She looked at Ryan one last time before leaving the inn. He was smiling, unaware of the storm of emotions inside her. Clara forced a polite smile, nodded, and turned toward the road that would take her home.